An impoverished artist donated her paintings to charity, never realizing they would sell for millions. Sophia Reeves stood in her cramped apartment, paint-stained fingers trembling as she surveyed the canvases stacked against the peeling walls. 20 years of her life captured in vivid oils and acrylics, each stroke a memory, each color a piece of her soul. Outside, December snow fell in thick, silent curtains, and the chill seeped through the thin window panes, but she couldn't afford to turn the heat above 60 degrees. Her eviction notice lay crumpled on the table beside a stack of unpaid medical bills. 3 months since the diagnosis. 3 months of treatments that drained her meager savings and left her too weak to work her usual shifts at the diner. The paintings were all she had left, and they hadn't sold at a single gallery. Sophia ran her fingers across the textured surface of her favorite piece, a swirl of deep blues and violets with pinpricks of gold that she'd titled Midnight Wishes. She'd painted it the night her mother died, 5 years ago, channeling grief into beauty in the way only artists know how. The charity fundraiser for the Children's Hospital was tomorrow. She'd promised them artwork for the silent auction, thinking perhaps a single small piece. But now, gazing at her life's work, a whisper took root in her mind. What good were these paintings doing here, collecting dust in an apartment she could no longer afford? They should be seen, she murmured to the empty room. They should help someone. The decision crystallized in that moment of surrender. If her art couldn't save her, perhaps it could save others. She would donate them all. Morning light spilled through the windows of St. Martin's Community Hall as Sophia helped volunteers arrange her paintings along the walls. 27 pieces in total, nearly everything she'd ever created that wasn't already sold or given away. Each canvas was a chapter of her life story, from the frenetic energy of her early 20s to the more contemplative works of recent years. "These are remarkable," said Eleanor Whitman, the silver-haired charity organizer who moved with efficient grace despite her 70-plus years. "Are you certain you want to donate all of them? We'd be grateful for just 1 or 2. Sophia nodded, her throat tight. "They need to be somewhere they'll matter." Eleanor studied her face, eyes sharp with concern. "And what will you do?" "Start over." The words felt both terrifying and liberating. "I have family in Arizona. It's warmer there." What Sophia didn't mention was that her family consisted of a second cousin she barely knew, who had reluctantly agreed to let her stay on a pull-out couch until she found work. She didn't mention the treatments she couldn't afford to continue. Some truths were easier left unspoken. As she placed her final painting, a small landscape of the city at dawn, golden light breaking over shadowed buildings, Eleanor touched her arm. "You know, dear, I used to paint. Never made a career of it, but I understand what these mean to you." The older woman pressed a business card into Sophia's palm. "My son Daniel runs a gallery in Chicago. It's small, but he has an eye for talent. When you're ready to create again, call him." Sophia pocketed the card with a grateful smile, though she doubted she'd use it. The doctors had given her 6 months if she stopped treatment. Creating again felt like a luxury beyond her reach. Later that evening, as the auction began, Sophia slipped out the back door. She couldn't bear to watch strangers casually bid on pieces of her heart, perhaps to hang in bathrooms or storage rooms. Better to remember her work as it was, vibrant against St. Martin's warm wooden walls before saying goodbye. In the parking lot, snowflakes caught in her eyelashes as she lugged her suitcase toward the bus stop. Arizona awaited, and whatever time she had left. Daniel Whitman was not in a charitable mood. His mother's persistent calls had finally worn him down, and now he found himself at a community fundraiser on a snowy evening when he should have been preparing for next week's exhibition. At 42, with gray threading through his dark hair and constant tension knotting his shoulders, Daniel had built his reputation on discovering overlooked talent. Northlight Gallery was his life's work, consuming his days and most of his nights. "There she goes," Eleanor said, nodding toward a slight figure slipping out the exit. "That's the artist I told you about." Daniel caught only a glimpse of a woman with copper hair disappearing through the door. "Mom, I came to support the fundraiser, not to recruit artists. I have a full roster for the next year. Just look at the work, Daniel." His mother's tone brooked no argument. "Consider it my birthday present." Sighing, he allowed himself to be led to a wall displaying a series of canvases. The first piece stopped him mid-stride, a storm of midnight blues spiraling around points of light that seemed to pulse with their own energy. The technique was imperfect in places, but the emotional impact was undeniable. He moved to the next painting, and the next, feeling the familiar stirring in his chest that had guided his career, the recognition of authentic vision. These weren't polished gallery pieces, they were raw emotional narratives, technically uneven but captivating in their honesty. "Who is she?" he asked, his professional interest genuinely piqued. "Sophia Reeves. Been painting for years without recognition. Donated everything she had today." Eleanor watched her son's face carefully. "She's headed to Arizona tonight. Something about family there, but I suspect she's running from something." Daniel continued his examination, stopping longest before a canvas showing a hospital room window with a bird perched on the sill, the shadow of a patient visible in the foreground. The title card read simply, "Visitor." "This was painted by someone confronting mortality," he said quietly. Eleanor nodded. "I thought the same." An auction volunteer approached them excitedly. "Mrs. Whitman, we've already raised $12,000 and we're only halfway through the artwork. That piece there just sold for $3,000 to the Hendersons." Daniel felt a twinge of alarm. "Wait, these pieces are being sold separately? To different buyers? Yes, isn't it wonderful? We might break our fundraising record." Daniel turned to his mother. "This collection shouldn't be split up. The narrative arc across these paintings, it's a complete body of work." His gallery instincts were now fully engaged. "What's the total value of the remaining pieces?" Eleanor's eyes widened. "Daniel, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I need to find Sophia Reeves before she boards that bus." The snow was falling harder as Daniel's Range Rover pulled into the transit center. He scanned the sparse crowd of travelers, searching for copper hair among the bundled figures. The last Arizona-bound bus was boarding, passengers shuffling forward in the swirling snow. There, a slight woman at the end of the line, a worn suitcase at her feet. Even from a distance, he could see she wasn't dressed properly for the weather, her thin jacket offering little protection against the biting December cold. "Sophia Reeves?" he called, approaching quickly. She turned, wariness instantly replacing surprise on her pale face. "Yes? I'm Daniel Whitman, Eleanor's son." He extended his hand, which she regarded suspiciously before shaking. Her fingers were ice cold. "I need to talk to you about your work. I've already donated it. Whatever questions you have, the charity can answer." She reached for her suitcase, clearly intending to end the conversation. "I just bought all your remaining paintings." That stopped her. "You what?" 21 pieces. The other 6 had already sold before I could intervene. Snow collected on his shoulders as he stood before her. "Please, can we talk somewhere warm? I have a proposition for you." Suspicion lingered in her eyes. "The bus is leaving in 5 minutes. I'll pay for another ticket if you don't like what I have to say." The diner across from the bus station was nearly empty, its fluorescent lights harsh against the steamy windows. Sophia cradled a mug of tea between her hands, the warmth slowly returning feeling to her fingers. Across the booth, Daniel Whitman placed his phone on the table, screen up. "I've transferred $83,000 to the Children's Hospital Fund for your paintings." Sophia choked on her tea. "That's impossible. It's actually below market value for 21 original works, but it was all they would accept at an auction." His expression remained serious. "I run Northlight Gallery in Chicago. We specialize in emerging artists with distinctive voices." "I know who you are," Sophia admitted quietly. "I submitted a portfolio to your gallery 4 years ago." Recognition flickered across his face. 4 years. We receive hundreds of submissions, and mine wasn't accepted. It's fine." She looked down at her tea. "I appreciate what you did for the charity, but I don't understand why you're here." Daniel leaned forward. "Those paintings tell a story, your story. They shouldn't be scattered in different homes. They belong together as a collection." He paused. "I want to exhibit your work, Sophia. A solo show at Northlight." The world seemed to tilt slightly beneath her. After 20 years of rejection letters and unanswered emails, of friends and family gently suggesting she find a real career, of painting by lamplight because she couldn't afford proper studio lighting, now, when she had given it all away, now came recognition? The cruel irony threatened to overwhelm her. "You're about 6 months too late," she said, her voice barely audible above the diner's ambient noise. "Because you're moving to Arizona?" Sophia studied him, this stranger who had purchased her life's work. His face showed genuine interest, perhaps even concern. The secret she'd been carrying alone pressed against her chest, demanding release. "Because I'm dying," she said simply. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I stopped treatment last week when the money ran out." The shock on his face was quickly replaced by something else. Not pity, but a quiet determination. "All the more reason to do this exhibition now," he said after a moment. "While you can be there to see it? I don't have any more work to show." You bought everything, then create new pieces. He said it as though it were the most obvious solution in the world. Come to Chicago. I have a studio space above the gallery that's sitting empty. 3 months to prepare for a show. After that, he left the sentence unfinished, the reality of her diagnosis hanging between them. Sophia laughed, a sharp sound with no humor in it. You don't understand. I can barely afford bus fare to Arizona. I certainly can't afford to live in Chicago for 3 months. The studio includes living quarters, and I'll advance you against future sales. Future sales, she repeated. When I just told you I'm dying. Daniel's expression remained steady. Art outlives its creators, Ms. Reeves. That's rather the point. He slid a contract across the table. 60% commission to you, 40% to the gallery. Standard terms. The advance would cover modest living expenses and medical costs. Sophia stared at the document, her mind racing. Why would you do this? You don't know me. I know your work, he countered. And frankly, this isn't charity. Your paintings will sell and Northlight will profit. He hesitated, then added more softly, My mother rarely recommends artists to me. When she does, I listen. The Arizona bus departed with a hiss of hydraulics and a plume of exhaust. Sophia watched it pull away, her future recalibrating with each second. The contract sat signed in Daniel's briefcase. In 12 hours, she had given away everything she owned and somehow gained a solo exhibition at one of Chicago's most respected galleries. It's not too late to change your mind, Daniel said, standing beside her in the swirling snow. Sophia shook her head. No, I've spent too long waiting for opportunities that never came. If I have 3 months, I want them to matter. She didn't add that the advance would allow her to restart treatment, that the studio would spare her from dying on a pull-out couch in a stranger's apartment, that for the first time in years she felt a flicker of something that might be hope. Instead, she simply followed Daniel to his car, leaving footprints in the snow that would soon be covered, erased as though she had never been there at all. Chicago greeted Sophia with brutal wind and towering buildings that blocked what little winter sunlight managed to penetrate the cloud cover. Northlight Gallery occupied the first floor of a renovated factory building in an artsy neighborhood experiencing the early stages of gentrification. The space was larger than she'd imagined, with exposed brick walls, polished concrete floors, and a sophisticated lighting system that made even the empty walls look intentional. The studio apartment above was small but thoughtfully designed, with north-facing windows that ran the length of one wall, providing the consistent light artists craved. A new easel stood in the center of the room, surrounded by blank canvases and a wooden table laden with more art supplies than Sophia had ever owned at once. The kitchen is basic but functional, Daniel explained, opening cupboards to reveal dishes and staples. Bathrooms through there. Washer and dryer in the hallway closet. The gallery closes at 9, but you have 24-hour access through the back stairs with your keycard. Sophia moved through the space in a daze, touching surfaces to confirm they were real. This is very generous. It's an investment, he corrected, though not unkindly. Your first appointment at Northwestern Memorial is tomorrow at 11. My assistant Amy will accompany you. I don't need a babysitter. Amy handles insurance paperwork for all our artists. Trust me, you want her help navigating the system. Daniel checked his watch. I have meetings the rest of today, but we'll talk tomorrow about exhibition concepts. Questions? 1,000, but none she could articulate. Sophia shook her head. Good. Get settled. Create. He moved toward the door, then paused. One rule, no locking yourself in here for days. Artists tend to disappear into their work. That's fine, but check in occasionally so I know you're alive. The blunt reference to mortality hung in the air after he left. Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the sudden change in circumstances. She had expected to be in Arizona by now, making peace with the end. Instead, she found herself with a second chance, not at life perhaps, but at leaving something meaningful behind. She approached the easel slowly, running her fingers over its smooth wooden frame. The blank canvas waited, patient and judgmental all at once. I don't know if I remember how to begin, she whispered to the empty room. But her hands remembered, reaching for charcoal to sketch the first tentative lines. By nightfall, the outline of Chicago's skyline had emerged, buildings like sentinels against an empty sky, waiting to be filled with light or shadow. She hadn't decided which. The following weeks established a rhythm Sophia hadn't experienced since art school. Mornings at the hospital for treatment that left her nauseated but determined, afternoons and evenings at the easel. The oncologist had been cautiously optimistic about extending her prognosis with aggressive therapy, though careful not to promise miracles. Daniel visited the studio every few days, sometimes offering technical suggestions, but more often simply observing her progress in silence. Their relationship remained professional, bounded by the contract between them, yet Sophia found herself looking forward to his visits. He had an uncanny ability to see what a painting needed before she recognized it herself. "You've captured the city's skeleton," he remarked one evening in late January, studying her cityscape series. "But not its heart." Sophia wiped paint-stained hands on her apron. "I'm still learning Chicago. It doesn't reveal itself easily. Neither do you." His gaze shifted from the canvas to her face. "These are technically impressive, but you're holding back. Your earlier work had more vulnerability." The observation stung because it was true. Sophia had been painting safe, marketable pieces, technically proficient urban landscapes and abstract compositions that revealed nothing of her inner state. "Those earlier works were painted when I had nothing to lose," she admitted. "Now there's pressure. Expectations. Forget the exhibition. Forget sales." Daniel's voice was unusually intense. "Paint what scares you. That's where the real work happens." After he left, Sophia stood before the half-finished cityscape, suddenly dissatisfied. She had been playing it safe, creating pleasant works that would look appropriate in corporate offices and upscale living rooms. She was painting for a future she wouldn't be part of. In a burst of determination, she covered the cityscape with gesso, obliterating weeks of work beneath a layer of white. Then she began again, this time painting from the center of her fear, not the fear of dying, but the fear of being forgotten, of having lived without leaving a mark. The new painting emerged slowly, a hospital corridor stretching toward a distant light, the walls lined with empty picture frames. A solitary figure walked the hallway, trailing colors from fingertips that streaked the sterile walls with vibrant life. When she finally collapsed into bed near dawn, the painting was only half complete, but already it contained more truth than anything she'd created in years. February arrived with a brutal cold snap that froze the Chicago River and forced Sophia to miss 3 days of treatment when the roads became impassable. She worked through the pain, channeling it into a new series she titled Time Remaining, 12 canvases representing the hours of a single day, each populated with memories, regrets, and hopes rendered in increasingly abstract forms. Daniel brought soup and medications during the worst of the storm, checking the building's heating system and leaving without intruding on her creative process. He seemed to understand intuitively when she needed space and when she needed company, showing up with coffee just as she was about to take a break or disappearing for days when she entered a productive flow state. On Valentine's Day, to her surprise, he invited her to dinner. "Not a date?" he clarified, looking almost embarrassed. "The exhibition space is ready for your review, and I thought you might appreciate a change of scenery." The restaurant was small and unpretentious, a neighborhood Italian place where the owner greeted Daniel by name and led them to a quiet corner table. Sophia felt conspicuous in her simple dress, her body thinner than it had been in December, her copper hair grown back just enough to cover her scalp in a soft fuzz after the initial treatments had caused it to fall out. "You look lovely," Daniel said, reading her discomfort. "The color brings out your eyes." Sophia managed a smile. "I suspect you say that to all your dying artists." His expression didn't change. "You're the first, actually." The admission shifted something between them. Throughout dinner, they discussed the exhibition layout, which pieces would be displayed together, and the narrative thread that would connect them. But beneath the professional conversation ran a current of something deeper, an awareness that their time together was bounded, precious in its impermanence. "Why did you really track me down at that bus station?" Sophia asked over dessert, a question that had lingered since December. The truth this time, not the gallery owner answer. Daniel considered her for a long moment. "Your midnight painting, the one with the swirling blues and gold points of light. I have a recurring dream about a place that looks exactly like that." He smiled self-consciously. "I've had it since childhood. Standing in a field, looking up at a sky that feels alive like it's breathing with me. And seeing my painting was like finding a piece of your dream in the waking world." Sophia finished softly. He nodded. "When I saw it hanging in that community hall, I felt recognized somehow. I had to meet the person who could pull an image from my dreams." The confession hung between them, too intimate to be mistaken for professional interest, too honest to dismiss. "I don't have much time left," Sophia said finally. her voice steady despite the emotion behind the words. "Whatever this is between us, it has an expiration date." "Everything does," Daniel replied. "Some endings just come sooner than others." After dinner, they walked through the gallery space, now transformed with fresh paint and adjustable walls to showcase her work. The earliest paintings, those Daniel had purchased from the charity auction, would occupy the entry gallery, creating a retrospective that led visitors through her artistic evolution to the new works being created upstairs. Standing in the empty space, Sophia could almost see the exhibition as it would be. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe it might actually happen, that she might live to see her work properly displayed, appreciated for what it was, rather than what it might sell for. "3 more weeks until installation begins," Daniel said, watching her reaction carefully. "How are you feeling about the new pieces?" Sophia thought about the raw, emotional works taking shape in her studio, paintings that exposed her fears, her regrets, and increasingly, her tentative hope. They were unlike anything she'd created before, technically imperfect but vibrant with life. "They're the most honest thing I've ever made," she answered. March brought the first hints of spring to Chicago, pale sunlight stretching longer each day. Sophia's health stabilized enough for her to work longer hours, though fatigue remained her constant companion. The exhibition, titled Borrowed Light, at Daniel's suggestion, was scheduled to open in 2 weeks. As installation began, Sophia watched her life's work transformed through professional lighting, careful placement, and the context Daniel created through thoughtful curation. Seen together, her artistic journey told a story even she hadn't fully recognized, from youthful experimentation through periods of despair and transcendence, culminating in the raw emotional honesty of her newest works. "You've arranged my entire life in chronological order?" she observed, standing beside Daniel as the team hung her hospital corridor painting. "Not chronological, emotional," he corrected. "There's an arc here that transcends timeline. Your early work shows promise, but your recent paintings show mastery, not just of technique, but of emotional truth." The observation touched something deep within her. All those years of painting in obscurity, of rejection letters and indifference, had been necessary steps in finding her authentic voice. The journey mattered as much as the destination. In the days before the opening, Chicago's art press began to take notice. Daniel had sent preview invitations to key critics and collectors, and the response was unexpectedly enthusiastic. A feature in the Tribune's arts section highlighted Sophia's unusual story, the artist discovered at the moment she'd given everything away. The night before the opening, Sophia stood alone in the gallery after hours, moving slowly from painting to painting. Her body ached from the day's treatments, but a different kind of pain occupied her thoughts, the realization that this exhibition represented both culmination and farewell. Whatever time remained to her would be measured in weeks, not months. She paused before Midnight Wishes, the painting that had first caught Daniel's attention. In the professional gallery lighting, the blues seemed deeper, the points of gold more luminous than she remembered. "It's still my favorite," Daniel's voice startled her. He stood in the doorway, jacket draped over one arm, eyes tired but warm. "Mine too," she admitted. "I painted it the night my mother died." "I know." He moved to stand beside her. "You told me the story when we hung it." "Did I?" Sophia frowned. The treatment sometimes affected her memory, blurring days together. "I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Never apologize for being human." His hand found hers, fingers interlacing naturally. "How do you feel about tomorrow?" Sophia considered the question, grateful, terrified, sad that my mother never lived to see this. She looked up at him. "What about you? This is your gallery's reputation at stake. The work speaks for itself. The critics who've previewed it have been unanimously positive." "And if they weren't?" Daniel shrugged. "I didn't build Northlight by following trends or chasing critical approval. I built it by trusting my instincts about what matters." His thumb traced small circles on her palm. "You matter, Sophia. Your work matters. Whatever happens tomorrow doesn't change that." They stood in silence, hands linked, surrounded by the physical manifestation of one woman's artistic journey. The connection between them had grown alongside the exhibition, tentative at first, then strengthening day by day, neither of them acknowledging the depth of feeling until this moment. "I should rest before tomorrow," Sophia said finally. Daniel nodded, releasing her hand reluctantly. "I'll drive you up to the studio." "No." She took a deep breath. "Take me home with you tonight." Their eyes met in the gallery's soft lighting, the unspoken question answered in her steady gaze. Whatever time remained, she would no longer waste it on fear or regret. Daniel's apartment occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse not far from the gallery. The space was open and minimalist, with carefully chosen artwork on the walls. None of it pretentious, all of it authentic. Like the man himself, Sophia thought. They moved together with the careful tenderness of people who recognize the precious fragility of the moment. His hands cradled her face as though she were made of glass. Her fingers mapped the terrain of his body as if committing it to memory. There was sadness in their lovemaking, acknowledgement of time's cruel limitations, but also joy in the connection, two souls recognizing each other amid life's chaos. Afterward, lying in the gentle darkness with her head on his chest, Sophia felt a peculiar peace settle over her. The exhibition would open tomorrow. Her work would finally be seen, appreciated for what it was rather than what it could sell for. And here, in this unexpected embrace, she had found something she'd stopped believing was possible: acceptance without condition, love without expectation. "I wish we had more time," Daniel whispered into her hair. Sophia closed her eyes, listening to his heartbeat. "We have right now?" she answered. That's more than most people ever find. Opening night exceeded everyone's expectations. The gallery overflowed with Chicago's art community, critics, collectors, and curious members of the public drawn by the Tribune feature. Sophia moved through the crowd in a simple black dress, accepting congratulations with quiet grace, watching as strangers engaged deeply with her most personal work. Eleanor Whitman had flown in from Minneapolis for the opening, her pride evident as she introduced Sophia to everyone she knew. "I told Daniel you were special," she confided, squeezing Sophia's hand. "He sees it now too, and not just your artwork." By midnight, red dots marked most of the paintings, indicating sales at prices that would have seemed impossible to Sophia just months earlier. The Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art's curator had expressed interest in acquiring 2 pieces for their permanent collection. A prominent collector had purchased the entire Time Remaining series for his foundation. As the last guests departed, Daniel locked the gallery doors and turned to Sophia, who sat exhausted but glowing on a bench in the center of the room. "Congratulations," he said softly. "You've officially arrived as an artist." Sophia smiled, the irony not lost on her. "Just in time to depart." "Don't." Daniel sat beside her, taking her hand. "Not tonight." They sat in companionable silence, surrounded by her life's work, both acutely aware of the ticking clock, but choosing to exist fully in the moment. 3 months ago, Sophia had given away everything she owned, believing her story was ending. Instead, she had found a new beginning, not the long future she might have wished for, but a present filled with meaning, connection, and the knowledge that her work would outlive her. Spring arrived in earnest as April unfolded. Cherry blossoms dusted the Chicago sidewalks with delicate pink, and the lake shifted from winter gray to hints of blue. In her studio, Sophia painted with renewed urgency, creating smaller works when she lacked the energy for larger canvases. Each piece sold almost immediately, usually to collectors who had seen the exhibition and wanted a piece of what critics were now calling the most important new voice in Chicago's art scene. The irony wasn't lost on Sophia. After years of rejection, her work was now in demand. Yet the success had come only when she had stopped creating for the market and started painting her truth, regardless of commercial appeal. Daniel divided his time between gallery responsibilities and caring for Sophia, whose health declined steadily despite continued treatment. They lived day by day, finding joy in small moments: morning light on the lake, shared meals, conversations about art and life, quiet hours when words weren't necessary. On a warm May afternoon, as Sophia napped in the apartment they now shared, Daniel received a call from Eleanor. "How is she?" his mother asked without preamble. "Weaker," he answered honestly. "The doctors say weeks, not months." Eleanor was silent for a moment. "And how are you holding up?" Daniel watched Sophia sleeping, her breathing shallow but peaceful. "I'm learning what courage looks like," he said quietly. "She gets up every day and paints, even when she can barely hold the brush. She's not afraid. And you're in love with her." It wasn't a question, but he answered anyway. "Yes, I thought so," Eleanor said gently. "Daniel, I need to tell you something. About those paintings from the charity auction. What about them? There's been considerable interest since the exhibition." Museums, private collectors. The hospital has received multiple offers for the 6 pieces that sold before you purchased the others. Daniel rubbed his eyes, not following her point. That's good for the hospital, I suppose. One collector in particular, Malcolm Reeves from the Reeves Foundation, has offered $3 million for all 27 paintings if they can be reunited as a complete collection. The name registered immediately. Reeves, is he related to Sophia? Her uncle, apparently. They've been estranged for years, but he saw the exhibition coverage and recognized her work. He wants to establish a permanent installation at their foundation headquarters. Daniel looked again at Sophia, sleeping peacefully, unaware of this new development. Does he know about her condition? Yes. That's why he's moved so quickly. Eleanor paused. The hospital board is meeting tomorrow to consider the offer. They want to know if you'd be willing to sell your portion of the collection. The decision should have been complicated. The paintings represented a significant investment for the gallery, and their value had increased exponentially since the exhibition's success. But Daniel found he didn't need to deliberate. Yes, he said simply, but I have conditions. When Sophia woke, Daniel was sitting beside the bed, a strange expression on his face. What's wrong? She asked, immediately sensing his agitation. Nothing's wrong, he assured her, taking her hand. But I need to tell you something important. About your uncle. Malcolm? Sophia frowned. I haven't spoken to him in 15 years. He saw the exhibition coverage. He wants to buy your entire early collection, all 27 paintings, for $3 million. Sophia struggled to sit up, disbelief evident in her expression. That's impossible. My uncle disowned me when I chose art over the family business. He said I'd never succeed. Well, he's changed his mind. Daniel helped position pillows behind her. He wants to create a permanent installation of your work at the Reeves Foundation headquarters. Your name on the building. Tears filled Sophia's eyes, emotions too complex for words. After all the years of disapproval and estrangement, after believing she would die without reconciliation, this gesture from her uncle felt like closing a painful circle. There's more, Daniel continued. The money would go to the children's hospital, of course, since they own the paintings now. But Malcolm has also established the Sophia Reeves Fellowship for Emerging Artists. 5 artists each year will receive funding and mentorship through Northlight Gallery. You arranged this, Sophia said, recognizing Daniel's influence in the details. He shook his head. I only added the fellowship component. The rest was Malcolm's idea. He's flying in tomorrow to see you if you're willing. Sophia looked out the window at the spring afternoon, life continuing its eternal cycle of renewal, while hers moved toward its conclusion. Yet here was an unexpected legacy, not just her artwork surviving, but her name attached to opportunity for other struggling artists, chances she never had until it was almost too late. Yes, she said finally, I'd like to see him. The reunion with Malcolm Reeves was awkward at first, 15 years of estrangement creating a barrier between them. But as they sat in Daniel's sunlit living room, the elderly man's formality gradually gave way to genuine emotion. I was wrong about your choice, he admitted, looking older and more vulnerable than Sophia remembered. You had a gift. I was too blinded by family tradition to see it. Why now? Sophia asked, the question that had lingered since Daniel told her of the offer. Malcolm's gaze dropped to his hands. Because I'm running out of time to correct my mistakes. He looked up, meeting her eyes directly. And so are you. The blunt acknowledgement of her condition was strangely refreshing after months of gentle euphemisms. They spoke for hours, rebuilding bridges long thought destroyed, finding connection in shared memories of the family they'd both loved and lost. Before leaving, Malcolm pressed a small key into Sophia's palm. The family beach house in Nantucket, he explained. It's June there now. Beautiful. Peaceful. His eyes flickered to Daniel, then back to his niece. If you want to spend your remaining time somewhere other than a city apartment, it's yours. When he had gone, Sophia opened her hand to study the key, a tangible link to her past, and perhaps the final piece of her journey. What do you think? Daniel asked, watching her face carefully. Sophia thought of the ocean, of salt air and horizon lines unmarred by buildings, of falling asleep to the sound of waves rather than city traffic, of painting one last series with nothing but time and sky surrounding her. I think, she said slowly, that we should pack our things. The Nantucket house stood on a bluff overlooking the Atlantic, weathered cedar shingles silvered by decades of salt and sun. Inside, high ceilings and whitewashed walls created a perfect gallery for the small collection of paintings Sophia had created since the exhibition, works even more intimate and revelatory than those the public had seen. June unfolded in gentle grace, each day a gift savored rather than counted. Sophia painted when she had the strength, focusing on small seascapes and intimate portraits of Daniel reading, cooking, or simply watching the ocean. They lived simply, walking the beach when she felt able, talking for hours on the porch when walking became too difficult. Northlight Gallery continued successfully under Amy's management, with Daniel checking in remotely but increasingly focused on the present moment, on memorizing the particular shade of gold in Sophia's eyes when sunset light struck them, on the feel of her hand in his as they watched stars emerge over the water. They didn't speak of the future beyond general arrangements. They didn't need to. Each understood that their story together would be brief but complete, a novella rather than a novel, but no less meaningful for its brevity. On a perfect July morning, with sunlight streaming through open windows and the sound of waves creating a gentle soundtrack, Sophia finished her final painting. Small but luminous, it showed two figures from behind, sitting close together on a beach, watching a sky that swirled with deep blues and points of golden light, a deliberate echo of midnight wishes, but with a crucial difference. In this version, the sky wasn't a solitary experience but a shared one. "It's finished," she said simply, setting down her brush. Daniel studied the painting, understanding its significance, both as artistic closure and something more personal. "It's perfect," he said, voice thick with emotion. "What will you call it?" Sophia considered for a moment, then smiled. "Borrowed light?" 2 days later, she slipped away peacefully in her sleep, Daniel's arms around her, the ocean murmuring its eternal rhythm outside their window. The second exhibition at Northlight Gallery opened exactly 1 year after the first. Titled Borrowed Light: The Final Works, it featured the paintings created during Sophia's last months, from the powerful pieces completed in Chicago to the luminous, intimate works from Nantucket. The centerpiece was the small painting of two figures sharing the midnight sky, displayed alongside the original Midnight Wishes, on loan from the Reeves Foundation collection. Together, they told a story of transformation, from solitary struggle to profound connection, from isolation to belonging. Critics praised the exhibition as even more powerful than the first, noting the extraordinary technical and emotional evolution evident in works created under the shadow of mortality. The Sophia Reeves Fellowship had selected its first 5 recipients, young artists who showed promise but lacked opportunity, just as Sophia herself had for so many years. After the opening night crowd dispersed, Daniel remained alone in the gallery, moving slowly from painting to painting, remembering the moments behind each creation. The woman who had entered his life so unexpectedly, who had transformed it so completely in just 7 months, lived on in every brushstroke. "You were right," he said softly to the empty gallery. "This light was borrowed. But what a light it was." Outside, Chicago continued its eternal rhythm, and somewhere above the city lights, stars punctured the darkness with points of gold against deep blue, a midnight sky breathing in perfect synchronicity with those who paused to notice its beauty, however fleeting, however permanent.